Dude, you have an electric tea kettle.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's cool. I got woken up this morning because I was like sleeping. I don't even remember if I turned on the tea kettle, but it came on for some reason. And it was all like, woo, whistling. I had to run in the other room and turn it off. Could have been whistling all night for all I know.
Yeah, that's weird. But don't you and Constantine have a review to do today?
Yeah, I was outside with Constantine. I was out there, and you like ran away.
Why were you wearing a mask? You didn't have a face.
I usually don't. Yeah, man, it was totally weird. The dream, like, it woke me up. The tea kettle was loud, super high pitched, crazy sounding. Like, whoa!
That's so weird. There's been so much weird shit going on here. There was stuff falling over, stuff moving around. There was a wine bottle here and glasses, and they moved across the table. That's really shit.
Visions. This was just another one of those random Netflix watches. I just turned on Netflix. I think it was like a new film, so it just popped up. I decided to give it a watch, and I think it had some elements that I knew that you would like, or that I knew that you would connect to at least. But it definitely had a lot of other stuff that I felt, would be good to have a discussion about.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. There's a lot of things that I liked about it, but there's a lot of things that I didn't like about it. I would say that it's a middle of the road movie. It's pretty average. There's nothing that's too memorable in it.
Yeah.
It's good. I probably wouldn't watch it again though.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, after I watched it, I felt going through the movie, I had mixed feelings. I felt maybe they kind of pulled something together at the end that made it worthwhile, sort of. And then I kind of almost forgot what happened in the film shortly, like a week or two after that. I was like, what happened in that movie? So I had to rewatch it so that we could have this discussion about it. But if it was just for pleasure, then it wouldn't be on my screen again.
It's worth one watch.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Evilly Maddox is still traumatized a year following her tragic car accident that killed a child in the other vehicle.
She is now 3 months pregnant, and her husband has done everything he can to console her, including moving them out to a beautiful vineyard in Southern California, where they hope to impress the area's top wine distributor, Helena Knoll, with their own product.
But Evily's dream of a new life will quickly turn into a nightmare because trauma is not the only thing that's haunting her. It was a unique story. I thought it was an interesting story. I like the type of movies where you kind of don't know what's going on the whole time. Is it a dream? Is it a haunting? Is it some kind of premonition? Is she going insane? What's going on? I like those type of things. I think the story elements are pretty good overall in it.
The fundamentals of the film are good.
Yeah.
They definitely follow certain archetypes that you can immediately identify with. The couple moves to a new location. That's a big one. It's usually a new house, and that house is the character. And in this movie, I think it's the house and the property, because the vineyard has its own. It is its own character in the film, I think.
Yeah.
So whenever I think I was drawn into it immediately when I started watching it because of how it looked. That location, like, oh, that's a beautiful vineyard. That's a really cool rustic house that they're moving into. It also has the convention of there's some trauma that's become between the couple that they have to contend with. In this case, it's specifically the wife, but they're both kind of involved. But it's definitely like hurting her a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we have those two archetypes that we're immediately pulled into with the story. All that stuff is fine. That's good. Good way to start a film. So, but from there, where does it go?
So, I think that most of the characters' actions make sense. I think the Evie, the main character, I think her reactions to the weird shit that's going on, I think that it's pretty much what you would expect. And of course, it's one of those things that I hate in movies, that everybody else thinks that she's just losing her mind. And nobody believes her. The husband just blows her off completely every time she mentions something. She's like, there's a guy outside. He's wearing a mask, or he's hooded, or whatever. He's going to come in and probably kill us. And he's like, you've got PTSD from that car accident. Can't believe anything you're saying.
Yeah,
is basically how it goes from the very beginning. Because I think that's the first thing that happens, is she sees a hooded figure outside in the property, and she freaks out about it. Husband comes in, and he's like, it's nothing.
Meh, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think that was the primary source of tension in the whole movie. Like, they based the whole movie on the fact that she's unstable, and she's going to start seeing these visions that nobody else can see. It's established pretty early on that nobody else can see them. You know, like, she's like, oh, there's that thing going on. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. And so that's the whole film, basically. The rest of the film is her being crazy and getting more and more crazy, and everyone else thinking more and more that she's crazy throughout the film.
Yeah.
And I personally don't like that convention in horror films, because to me it does not make sense. Maybe it does, but to me it doesn't. It's just done, or maybe it's just overplayed. Because if you're the husband and your wife is going nuts, you're not just going to be like, man, you're either going to do something specific, like, we're getting you some help, like, now, or I'm doing something, or I'm taking some specific action because I think you're crazy. Or you're going to be like, maybe there's something going on. You're like, 'cause she's your wife, so on some level, if we're meant to believe that they love each other, which I think we're supposed to at the beginning, even though they're a little disjointed throughout the film, I think we're supposed to meant that they're a loving couple for the most part. If that's the case, then he should have been like, all right, I believe you. How can we figure this shit out? Yeah,
but instead it's like they're a loving couple. They're kind of coming apart a little bit because of the car accident, the whole thing with her having PTSD and stuff. And rather than him trying to figure it out, I guess in his mind he's trying to figure it out, because he's like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put you on anxiety medicine or depression medication or whatever. And he's like, that will solve everything.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it won't. I've been there, done that, don't like it. And he's like, well, no, you should probably just do it because I said so. I guess.
Because the pill is to solve it'll solve that.
It'll solve my problem because I don't have to hear you bitching anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And if you go further down that road of her acting hysterical and the film progressing based on that tension created in the story, then it starts to fall apart even more. Because if you think about it just from her standpoint, on a character sketch level, why is she continuing to act more and more and more and more irrational throughout the film when she knows everyone is observing her as a crazy person? You would think, as a logical person, if you know in your brain, I'm experiencing something paranormal or something out of the ordinary, that nobody else can see, but I believe in myself, I believe in what I'm seeing. The last thing I'm going to do is jeopardize my ability to figure out what the is going on by acting like a crazy person every time something happens. That at some point I'm going to know something's going to happen. So she just, so why is at the end of the, or like mid-range to the end of the film, she's just acting annoying and nuts to the point where everyone's like, you're annoying and nuts, and the viewer's like, yeah, of course she is. She's acting that way.
Yeah, and I think that it goes along the line of she's not necessarily nuts to begin with,
Yeah.
but the events are starting to make her a little bit nuts, and the fact that nobody believes her is also making her a little bit nuts as well, and she's starting to become unhinged a little bit because of that.
Yeah.
Because she's got all this weird shit happening, and nobody will listen to her, nobody will believe her. So rather than trying to suppress that and try to figure it out on her own, which she does try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's just she's not able to get herself completely under control.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And I know the film was trying to work that out in some way. I just felt like it was executed. It could have been executed better. Because when it comes down to it, she did have a husband that by the end of it, he didn't turn out to be some sinister character. You know, like he wasn't involved in the shit that came down at the end. You know, like, so we can't go back to the film and be like, all the times that he disbelieved her, all the times that he wasn't supportive, all those times, they made perfect sense. Because, like, in Rosemary's Baby, when we found out her husband was one of the witches, it was like, oh, well, it makes sense that he was, you know, that he was kind of, like, coaching her in that direction, that he wasn't believing her, that he, you know, because he's trying to control her on some level or another.
Yeah.
In this film, we're meant to believe we have a completely loving husband who's there to be totally supportive, and then there are scenes where they kind of portray him as, like, I'm trying to be really patient with you, I'm trying to, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then he never follows through with anything
other than trying to get her on medication.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think those plot threads are kind of weak. There are also some things with the dialogue that I felt are a bit like stilted, strange. It just came off to me weird. I don't know if it did to you. Evie constantly calls her husband by his name all the time. I don't even know if spouses do that. It's like, David, do you think David? David, do you think David? David? It's like, no. It's like, baby, hun, you know, hot mama, whatever it is. It's not, you don't always call your spouse by their name. But it was
and
every time she referred to him, it was his
they
name.
exclusively did.
Yeah. Which I thought was weird.
Now that you bring it up, I can see that. It's not really something that I picked up on, but thinking back through it, yeah, that's how it went.
Yeah, I felt perhaps the structure of the plot was somewhat mechanical because they were trying to make certain things fall into place in a specific way that had to all come together at the end.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily easy to manage, but the dialogue and the interaction between the characters also, to me, became somewhat mechanical because of that. I felt like there was no natural interplay between any of the characters that I saw on the screen.
Yeah. They had their vision of what they wanted it to be and what sequence needed to play out in order to get the end result, the end scene.
Right.
And
they did that, so I'll give them that.
They accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't accomplished the best that it could have been.
Yeah. They ticked off a bunch of other goals that as a viewer we definitely want those goals to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
In order for them to just fulfill this mechanical goal of getting the structure from here to there. So, I don't know. What do you think for the score on the story elements? We got 6 points total, and I think we just mentioned that they missed quite a few things. They got their basic agenda down. I don't know if that agenda, which could go into more discussion, which I don't want to. That agenda may not even be the greatest agenda in the world. You know, they fulfilled all those little points that came together at the end, but those points were still annoying going through them to begin with. So I'd give it a 3 out of 6.
That's actually exactly what I was thinking, because the way that I look at it is I don't look at it like giving it a letter grade. Like if we give it like 50%, then that's like an F.
Yeah.
But I don't think that translates well into grading a movie like this. I think of like 50% it's a movie that makes you go, eh.
Yeah.
So I think 3 out of 6 is good.
Agreed. All right, so direction and production. How do we feel about the choices that were made in this film to get us to be scared?
Direction and production. Let's get
the book. Let's get the notebook out for this.
Let me consult my tick marks here that I made for the jump scares in the movie.
Yeah.
There were 6 very blatant audio and sometimes audio and visual jump scares.
Yeah.
The first one being, very first one, I gave it, I was like, okay, the first one that happened, it was basically an audio jump scare. The sheet on the bed goes back and it goes boom, and it made me jump because it was so loud and so abrupt and I was like, you got me on that one.
Good job.
But then when it continued to happen, I was like,
you got the nuts. There we go.
We're going to make note of that for later.
Yeah, that particular one, after it happened, I didn't jump. I just don't jump at movies. But it was immediately like, really? Because they not only did they do the bass drop, they also added, if you noticed, a high-pitched scream also. Like, it was like, and you were like, like, if I didn't jump, like, my ears are now, like, bleeding with my surround sound. Let's turn the volume down. Thanks very much for that. So, and she's covered in blood, and it's like, oh, no. So, cheap. Just fucking cheap. One
is acceptable.
Yeah.
More than that, it's bad.
Yeah, I think we had this talk before, and we were just like, how many should we let them get away with?
And it was one.
It was one.
Like, one. You get one.
After one, if it's not super fucking creative the way you're pulling them off, then you get like minus some every time you do that.
Yeah, and they weren't creative. They were very cliche. Yeah. Like I guess you didn't really know that they were coming, with the exception of the hooded guy.
Yeah.
You knew that was coming. You knew he was going to be out there in front of the door whenever she looked back.
Yeah.
You knew that one was coming. There was one where a window breaks, and it's like she's like right up in front of it. It's like, and she falls on the ground. And I don't know if there was a bass drop on that one or if it was just the sound of glass shattering. But I wouldn't have been surprised if they dropped the bass on it as well.
At some point, I just stopped paying attention to that stuff because it was just like, well, you already failed.
Yeah,
you failed on this category because why would you do this?
Yeah.
Even the guy that came out of the water, they did some ridiculous sound for, and it was like,
yeah, it was one of those movies that relied really heavily on hitting some kind of note whenever something scary happens.
Yeah, and you don't need to. Some shit that just happens can be really creepy. You can just sit on the scene. It doesn't mean you don't have to have music, but we don't have to be like or whatever. So
I feel like I think we obliterated the score on this one with just the jump scares.
Yeah, just that technique alone. Not to say that, but okay, we could go through and pick apart all the other stuff as well, and how it just didn't play out that well. They got the main points, but the direction of the actors and their interplay together, I felt that was weak because I didn't really get a sense that I gave a crap about anyone. You could say that that's Thespian competence on some level when we get there, but I think part of that is also direction. How's the director, influencing these people to play on the stage together? I didn't feel like there was any real leadership going on there. I didn't get a sense that we really had a firm grasp or control of the animal that we were trying to lock down on this film. So me, and this might be a little harsh, but jump scares alone is bad, real bad, and he did a lot of them. And then with everything else being as mediocre as it was, 0 out of 2.
I think that's what we had discussed before, because we were basically like, well, after the first one, it's probably half a point for each one. Even if we do a quarter point for each one, the amount of jump scares in the movie obliterates direction and production by itself.
I agree. I mean, there's certain things that I don't want to see in horror films unless you're specifically doing some kind of parody or it's a comedy or something like that. But if you're legitimately doing a horror film, there are things that are really going to kick you in the nuts. And jump scares is one of them. If you have just overly sexualized boobs or something for no reason, you're probably going to get hit with that one. There's a whole bunch of stuff. If cats are randomly jumping out of places or doves.
Cat out of the cat.
Yeah, or any of that kind of... Yeah. So, 0, no.
Yeah. If you don't like jump scares, not a movie that you want to watch.
No.
The company that did it, I looked into a little bit, was Blumhouse, and they do a lot of things that you probably don't personally like. They did Paranormal Activity, Sinister movies, Insidious, The Purge. They are a low and micro budget production company.
Well, I've definitely seen the Blumhouse iconography fairly often whenever I'm browsing through the low budget horror films. And more props to them for being a low budget horror production team. So that's cool. And the product always looks pretty good whenever they do it for as low as the production cost as they use. But the production choices, choices, man, I ain't happy with it. So. Okay, Thespian competence. What do you think about the actors in this film?
I thought they were sufficient, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything that really struck me as outstanding. And I mean, you're normally a little bit more perceptive of if there's somebody in there that you recognize from something else. I don't think there was anybody that was recognizable in this. I don't even from like smaller horror movies and just the horror genre in general. I definitely didn't recognize anyone. There wasn't anybody that was memorable as far as their acting in the movie.
I guess you're right. Like I do pay attention to actors quite a bit. I recognized a good many people in this film, so I felt like, oh well, those people are all in there. This is looking good.
Oh, there was who was it that was the other vineyard owner or whatever?
John Delancey?
Yeah.
The guy who was Q in Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah. That is, I forgot about him because he's in there very, very little.
Yeah. So I guess he's like the historical, he provides the historical view of the plot. Which I always think that's an interesting technique. They just didn't really use that very well.
Yeah.
Or they barely used it. It was just like one scene. But he's a cool actor. So if anyone's watched Next Generation, you'll recognize him. He played Q, and he was a rascal. In Next Generation. Isla Fisher is the main actress, and she's like in Wedding Crashers. And there's a movie I watched with Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis called Burke and Hare, and it's actually pretty funny. Gillian Jacobs is in Bad Milo, if you've ever seen that, and Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
I've not seen 2.
And I guess Joanna Cassidy is the wine expert that she's trying to impress, the old woman that kind of shows up throughout the film. And she's in Blade Runner. She's in Star Trek Enterprise. Have you ever seen Tommyknocker, the old film based on Stephen King? She's in that. And Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves. Nah. So now let's talk about Keanu.
Well, he wasn't in this movie, so it probably would have been a lot better if he had been in this movie.
That is true.
To be fair,
if he came through and he was like shooting all the things that were apparitions, then it would have been amazing.
He just picks off those coins off the table like visions of John Wick.
All right. So acting, I agree with you. It's competent. It's okay. It could have. I think the problem that I mentioned earlier with the stilted dialogue and stuff, that's a script issue. That's not necessarily an actor's issue.
Right.
So I think the actors were okay. 1 out of 1.
I guess so.
Yeah. I guess there was nothing specifically that I felt was like.
I don't feel like we should deduct points for the acting unless there's actually something wrong with it.
Yeah, unless it's blatantly obnoxious in a bad way.
Yeah.
Not in a hilarious way or anything, but just bad. So 1 out of 1, take it. Technical elements, last but not least. How did you feel about the way it looked, the way it sounded, the choice of locations, the choice of the people's, of the characters, the wardrobes, all that kind of stuff?
it all looked. I mean, the wardrobes, there were anything special. I didn't think they just. I don't even remember anything that was. Was there anything unique in it as far as their wardrobes? They just kind of dress like normal people, I guess, because it's a modern era. They're in California. They're on a vineyard.
Yeah, they look like what they were supposed to look like.
Yeah.
I guess
They just look like normal.
I didn't get a sense that there had to be any elaborate choices made for those elements of the film. I guess the one thing that they went out on for me with the technical elements is the location. They found a great location. I don't remember seeing that specific location in other films. You know how they reuse certain houses, and that's the house from the Addams Family, that's the house from whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing that particular location. So someone either knew someone who had that property, or they found it. Good job finding it, because I think that alone helps me through the film. I watched it just being able to look at it visually. That vision was fine. So I'll give him a 1 out of 1 for technical elements.
Yeah, the only thing that, and I had to look it up because I was just watching the film. I was like, I don't know where they're supposed to be, because it's like they look like they're somewhere. It looks like they're in a vineyard, but then they're in town, and it's like, okay, they look like they're secluded, but then there's a town, and she didn't drive a car; she rode a bike. So they're secluded, but they're close enough that she can bike into town. I don't know where these people are supposed to be. So I looked it up, and it's like there's like a vineyard country in California that they were supposed to be at.
Right.
And I guess for that, it looked like it was supposed to. I don't really know what a vineyard's supposed to look like, but
any film that I've seen, any SoCal film I've seen that portrays a vineyard, I think it looked right. It didn't look like they were filming in Italy or something.
It didn't look like they were filming in the backyard here or something like that.
Yeah, like, oh, it's a vineyard. You see those 3 stakes in the back?
Yeah, that's the...
Yeah, it was actually a big property. Like, she was walking all around the hill with the vineyard, with the grapevines and everything all.
Yeah, and they had, like, the ruins area, like, up on the hill.
Yeah. The location was cool. They could have done a lot with it. Felt like it's kind of a missed opportunity. So technical elements, 1 out of 1, take it. I mean,
that was perfectly fine. Looked good.
Good choices. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't someone wearing a Victorian garb that was just supposed to be some Southern California farmer.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So final thoughts, visions. I think we just kind of, just from the beginning, it's like it's kind of forgettable. It's worth a watch if you just don't have anything to do. It's a rainy day, and you've already jerked off like 6 times. So 6 or 7, maybe 7, because that's probably worth it more. And if that, nothing else going on, just turn on Visions. It's on Netflix. So there you go.
Yeah, it's there. It's it actually came out in 2016. Was another thing whenever I was looking it up. It is a really new movie, and it was. Let's see if I'm remembering this right. It came out January 2016, and it went straight to on-demand services. So this is where it went first, was on Netflix.
Okay. I do like the idea that studios do that type of thing. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think everything has to be the blockbuster theater thing.
Right.
So that's cool. But,
yeah. So it ends up with 5 out of 10, which sounds really bad, but like we said before, that's kind of an average. It's a movie that's probably not worth your time, but you just kind of go, whenever you're done.
If you're in a mood for a 5 out of 10 movie, it'll be right up your alley.
Yeah.